Chapter 1. Beyond the Numbers. If you think about it, all of life is built from numbers. Our big welcome into the world is preceded by 9 months of anxious waiting. At about age 1, we walk. At 16, we are granted permission to drive. At 18, around the time we land our first job, we're permitted to pay the government a cut from our income. At 25, we can finally rent a car. At 65, we're told it's time to retire. Somewhere between 80 and 100 on average, it's time to bid our humanity good day. And at 191 pounds, the whole world falls apart. Or at least, that's what you'd think if you were with me on that rainy Tuesday morning a few years ago. As I shook off the remaining drops of my morning shower, I headed to my closet, past the Christmas tree we store there, past the suitcases, past the boxes of baby clothes that I couldn't get rid of, even though my husband and I weren't planning to have more babies. Even past the other box of baby clothes, just in case. There it was, the thing I had hidden like a shameful, dirty habit. In part, it was. That scale had become my enemy numero uno. But like a long-lost cousin after you win the lottery, there it was, waiting for the attention it sought. Carrying it gingerly as if it were a bomb, I soldiered back through the battleground, waging war in my mind as I tiptoed into the bathroom, as quietly as possible, and placed the scale on the cold, hard floor. And then, in that familiar choreography, I slowly lifted my legs one at a time and stood atop the 12 by 12-inch square that had come to define my life. My life has always been about the numbers. Not just any numbers, these numbers. So when I saw 191 pop up on the cobalt screen of my digital scale, my mood quickly started to match that shade of blue. In and of itself, 191 is just fine, just as 91 is fine for some and 291 is fine for others. But for me, that 191 couldn't be digested without a closely associated number, 336, the number I was at when I started my weight loss journey more than a decade ago. I'd lost so much weight, but keeping it off was a constant battle. I was up a few pounds from last week, and every gain made me worry that I was headed back to where I'd started. Before I could even lift my somber head, I heard the feet behind me. There he was, my husband. And though my heart normally ticks up a notch when I see him, this time it sank into my stomach. How many times would he bear witness to my self-defeating square dance with that wretched metal scale? Don't get it twisted, Phil is no fat shamer. In fact, he is just the opposite. Despite my ball and chain relationship with that scale, he has loved me throughout all the numbers. 336, my highest, 169, my lowest, and everywhere in between. For those of you who aren't quite sure the same is true in your relationship, don't worry, we'll get to that in a later chapter. But in that moment, supportive and loving as I knew my guy was, I couldn't think about his love. All I could think about were the rendezvous I'd had with other loves as of late. That overly greasy, saturated in cheese slice of pepperoni pizza. That massive burger paired with its favorite partner of all time, fries. That decadent, warm brownie topped with even more chocolate and served with a glass of whole milk, because dairy is a food group, don't you know? I tried to remind myself that life is about balance, but in that moment, there was no balance in my emotions, as I went full-blown teenage girl going through puberty who was just dumped by her new boyfriend of 3 days. That number on the scale signified the end of my life, at least at that moment.